Let the Nations Be Glad is written by John Piper. He wrote this book out of his passion to see people, churches, mission agencies become God-centered, Christ-exalting, Spirit-empowered, true missional worshippers. This book is divided into 3 parts. First chapter is on the supremacy of God through worship. Mission is not the ultimate goal of the church. Worship is. Mission exists because worship doesn't. Worship is the ultimate, not missions, because God is ultimate, not man. Then Piper exalts the mercy of God. He used the illustration that describes the mercy of God as the apex of God's glory, the way the overflow of the fountain is the apex of the fountain's fullness. God is rich and all-sufficient. Chapter 2 is on the supremacy of God through prayer. He reminds us that our lives on earth are actually war zones, that people stopped believing. We are in a war, but there's no urgency, no watchfulness, and no vigilance. Instead, people are content with peace and prosperity. Prayer is an indispensable weapon in this spiritual warfare of missions. He uses the metaphor of prayer as a wartime walkie-talkie. We should not use it as an intercom in our houses. Prayer is an indispensable weapon in this spiritual warfare. He uses the metaphor of prayer as wartime walkie-talkie. We should not use it as an intercom in our houses. Prayers are for us to call in firepower for conflict with the enemy, not for asking for more comfort in the den. Chapter 3 is on the supremacy of God through suffering. Piper puts a lot of effort in describing how rich God is in love through suffering. He also tackles the questions on, does God actually cause his servants to suffer? Could a loving God do this? And, if Jesus already died a cruel and painful death, why are we still asked to give our lives? Piper points out one important note. He said, Jesus died so that we would not have to die for our sins, not so that we would not have to die for one another. Chapter 4 is on the supremacy of Christ as the conscious focus of all saving faith. Piper talks about the eternality of hell, the absolute necessity of the work of Christ, and one has to hear the name of Christ in order to be saved. He used a lot of scriptural support, and in particular the narrative on Cornelius hearing the message in Acts. Chapter 5 is on the supremacy of God among all nations. Piper explained the word ethos comprehensively as nation, tribe, family, and languages. He pointed out that it has always been the desire of God to reach all nations, supported by both Old and New Testament. Piper did a beautiful job in describing diversity and unity. God delights in diversity just as we delight in a choir that all sings the same piece of music, but each with their own voice and expression. The unity in diversity magnifies the universality of the beauty of our splendid King. Chapter 6 is on passion for God's supremacy and compassion for man's soul. Piper draws on his dead mentor, Jonathan Edwards, who put his theology centrality on the glory of God. However, Piper raises the attention of the readers that he did not use the term glory, but rather worship. He cites the fact that God is already glorified, but the issue with human is that we do not savor his goodness. Then he goes on to talk about compassion. Mission is driven not only by compassion for supremacy of God in all things, but also compassion for perishing people. Chapter 7 talks about inner simplicity and outer freedom for worldwide worship. Piper explained the Greek word proskuneo, which means bow down. It is extensively used in the Old Testament, in the Gospel when people meet Jesus, and in Revelation. It signifies worship with form and place. However, this word is almost absent in the epistles. Piper emphasizes that authentic worship should focus on spirit and truth. Inward devotion is the key. When we worship God inward radically, this will permeate into all areas of our life outwardly. With this, all external factors are stripped away and leaves us the simplicity of a woman or a man walking humbly with God. For appraisal of this book, Piper does a great job in bringing readers to a God-centered mind in mission. It covers the what, why, and for whom mission is truly for. We should always focus on the supremacy of God. And in this contemporary world, we talk about numbers, statistics, but the essence in mission is not on like how many nations we reach, how many mission trips we attended, or how many people converted. Mission is not a man-made program. It's all about worshiping God and bringing all people from all nations to worship Him together. Piper made this book very readable. He has made a good layout and format so that his logic is easy to follow. There are many good stories from past missionaries, in addition to very strong scriptural support. He starts with worship and ends with worship, and we could just sense and feel how much he desires to glorify God alone. However, we are learning about mission in being, doing, and telling. This book only addresses the being part. The heart of a true worshipper outflows the mission of God. This, together with a prayerful heart, a mind ready to suffer, to take up the cross, gives us the fuel to go into mission field. The gospel is about the finished work of Christ, and this has to be heard. We do this out of worship and our compassion from perishing people in all tribes, language, and nation. There is no Missio Deo in this book, and I found the concept of God's seal is for His own glory quite difficult to follow at the very beginning. Although this is true, but God is also the God in mission. Piper never mentions God, the Father who sends the Son who sends the Spirit, and together the Son, the Spirit, and the Father send the Church. Besides, the book does not cover the practicality in mission field. How to bring out God in this contemporary world, which is postmodern and full of social injustice and poverty issues? Having said that, I love that Piper reminds us that God desires our worship, not our work. Ultimately, it's our heart and inner being that matters to God, rather than what we do. And particularly, the chapter on suffering is very challenging for me. The statement he made that the death of Christ for the sin of my selfishness is not meant to help me escape the suffering of love, but to enable it. The cross enables me to suffer. This is so profound. Mission is hard and usually brings people out of their comfort zone, but it's so wonderful that Jesus already enabled us with His own blood.